Today we are talking about a topic I'm sure we have never covered, opera. Opera in elementary school on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Mark Nespadakis, and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. So we're talking today about opera. Now, I think that's a subject that I don't think we've actually ever covered on the podcast. And we're talking about it today as it relates to elementary school, which is an even more fascinating level. So I'm delighted to bring in a whole bunch of folks that if you're watching the video podcast, you'll see a whole bunch of folks that are tied to Penn State University. And instead of me trying to introduce all of them and tell you about all of them and botch it, I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves before we get into the project. So let's start with Dr. Sarah Watts. Sarah, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Watts. Thank you so much for having us on today, Mark. I'm an associate professor of music education at Penn State.
All right. Dawn?
Hello, thanks for having us. My name is Dawn Pierce. I am a second-year assistant professor at Penn State, and I teach voice and opera.
All right. Anissa?
Hi, I'm Anissa. I am a second-year master's student in music education.
All right. And Cole?
Hi, my name is Cole Denton. I study voice performance and pedagogy as well as musicology at Penn State.
All right. So again, fascinating topic we have here today, talking about opera education and kind of a project that you all have worked on and putting this in to an elementary school classroom. So I guess kind of let's level set and start from the beginning. And Dawn, I'm going to turn to you on this. Tell us about, what the project is, how it came to be, what in the world, or what are we talking about today, basically?
I love this question because it actually evolved quite naturally, believe it or not. So I was new to State College and the Penn State community, and I have children, and one of my children is in second grade. And when I met to meet with the teacher before the beginning of the school year, Erin DePerna told me, once she found out I was an opera singer, she said, "Oh, long ago I saw this special on TV about how they came in and did an opera with their students. And would you want to do that with my students?" And I took a breath and I said, "Well, I've lived here for about 3 days and I haven't started my Penn State job yet. So give me 2 weeks and I'll get back to you." And so then I immediately reached out to the music education department because as an opera singer and teacher, despite the fact that I do have an undergraduate degree in music education, my expertise and my career have not been sitting in that place, but rather in performing and teaching opera. So I reached out to music education, and through that, I met the wonderful Sarah Watts, who expressed interest in connecting on this project. And the thing that was so beautiful about it is whenever I talk about Sarah, I always say something silly like, she's the jelly to my peanut butter jelly sandwich or something, because we started talking and we have really different perspectives and really different ideas that also come together in this beautiful and cohesive way. And her work in SEL education is really in line with how I feel about opera. I feel like opera is a place where we build empathy. We teach our audiences, we give them a safe space to practice empathy, and it's such a powerful thing that we do. And so the more we talked, the more we realized that I think we're a good fit to come together and to bring something into the school. The next thing we had to figure out was how are we going to do this? And so I reached out to Tim Kennedy, who is someone that I had worked with as a young artist, actually. And I had gone into schools performing little opera shows with him, but I also had been a part of watching him do his school program called Words to Music, where they actually wrote operas with the school. And I thought that would be a really cool way to do this. And so I reached out to him, and he's a teaching artist out in Colorado now. And we had some meetings and some conversations, and he was very generous in connecting with us to help us figure out how we could do it in our community. And so we got a grant, both Penn State and State College Area School District, and the not PTI here, PTO, is it PTA or PTO? I always get confused of which is which in which place, but they came together to give us grants to help us do small grants to help us bring people in and support us through this process. And we decided that the model would be to create a class for teaching artists at Penn State, where we could actually work with students and teach them the skill of teaching artistry to go into the classroom and deliver this curriculum. And so that's the model that we used. And we had 4 grad students that participated in the project. And you will meet 2 of them today who have taken leadership in the role as we go into our second year. The thing that I think is so exciting about this experience is that it's so highly collaborative. So we worked with the students you'll meet today, with the second grade teachers, with the aides and the special teachers in the school. And we were creative and collaborative in the process, so that I believe we actually landed in a place to design an experience that went beyond what any of us imagined at the beginning. And I can say for sure that at the final performance, when Erin DePerna stood up to announce it, she said, "I thought that Professor Pierce was going to come in 2 or 3 times to the classroom, and then we were going to produce a little opera in our class." But we ended up with the entire second grade, hundreds of students in an auditorium doing 2 performances and writing a complete opera from beginning to end. So I think we all worked together and brought our ideas together to create something really special.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. And I love the piece of this, of the making it a class for teaching artists. Because I think sometimes in our music education space, the value of a teaching artist can be forgotten. So I just looking at this from that perspective, I really appreciate that that's what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about like kind of the hands-on here. And I'm going to turn to the 2 grad students who were, then really involved in the grad students. So Nisa, I'll turn to you first. So talk to us about the experience for the students and composing and just kind of that process that they went through.
Sure. So this is a very long process, but what we ended up with was a 3-act opera where each act had 3 full songs, about 2 to 3 minutes each. So we had about a 45-minute show. And so how we started this was we came in and we were brainstorming, who are our characters? What are the themes? What are the settings? And we took that and we developed the libretto. And then after that, we decided, okay, where are the high points in this piece of music or in this scene? And then we wrote little poems or things like that. And then we used type beats on YouTube. And we looked around and we're like, does this fit the emotions of this scene? No, not really. And we would go through until we found ones that the kids really liked. And it was a very collaborative process. We would have the kids sing back and forth to each other, just brainstorming. And I would run around with my little tape recorder and I would record them. And then after that was over, I sat down with everything that I had recorded and put it together into a cohesive song that, fit the melody and the chord structure of the piece. However, you'd be very impressed by the musical ingenuity of second graders, because there were some lines that I was able to extract directly from what they said and plop it into a song, because it was really, that melodically sound. And so after that, we spent a few weeks blocking and practicing, and the kids even got to design their own costumes. We had a local costumer collaborate with us, and she took all of the kids' designs and created something that represented what they had given to her. And it was really impressive to see how she was able to do this for, probably about 100 kids. Mm-hmm. And that was a really great experience. And just at the crux of this all is just teaching the kids that it's okay to make mistakes. As we're going through this process, we encourage each other, we lift each other up. When someone gives an idea, we don't shoot it down. We use the idea of yes and a lot of improv skills. And I think that we saw a really huge increase in student confidence from kids that were kind of like class clowns going to like, I'm actually a really great singer, and be leaders in the songwriting process, or kids that maybe their parents were like, oh my goodness, my kid has one line. I never would have believed he would have stood up in front of all these people and said even one line, but they did it. And that was a moment of growth for him. So I think this project really highlights every student where they are and gives them an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. And as you're talking about that, I was thinking, what I mean, second graders, like, I mean, it's like herding cats in some ways, right? Like, I mean, that's complicated, right? I mean, I give it up to the teachers at the second grade level. So when you're doing something like this that is so different to them, and not only you're introducing this whole new, all of this stuff, right? You're introducing this genre of music that they are probably not really familiar with. You're throwing a lot of things at them at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So my sense is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were really able to get a lot of buy-in then from all of these students. And can you attribute that to anything? Are you able to look at it and say, well, this is why I think we were able to get the buy-in from everyone?
I think that it was multiple things. I think at first they were a little bit confused and they were like, where are we going with this? But for the class that I was working with, the moment that it really clicked for them was when we started writing the music. And I think they realized eventually that we, as the adults in the room, the teaching artists and their classroom teacher, were all working collaboratively. But I felt like once they realized that we weren't actually going to shoot their ideas down, that we wanted their ideas, that this was really something that like they were like really in charge of, that's when we started to see the buy-in. And now this year, the teachers know what to expect. So they have been hyping this project up to the students and they are so excited. They are like, so when are we gonna assign the parts? Because I know who I want to be now. So it was really a collaborative process to get the buy-in from the students. But once they realized it really went well.
It did.
Yeah. I mean, I think that even if this wasn't an opera thing, if this was another whatever, like that's a lesson there. The buy-in piece that you were able to create. So Cole, let me turn to you and kind of let's look on the other side of this when we talk about like the classroom teacher experience in this project. I would imagine maybe there was a little trepidation on their part too in how are we going to make this happen, or am I like doubly herding cats now in this process? But curious from your perspective then on what you witnessed from the classroom teacher perspective.
I mean, I just feel so privileged to have the chance to work with such great teachers at the elementary school that we worked with. 3 really, really well-rounded teachers who are excited. One of the things that actually Erin DePerna did say was that, sort of going back to your other question, is that second graders aren't there yet with social pressures, and they can really embrace the exciting parts about a project like this. And I think that the teachers actually learned a lot from the kids and how willing they were to be a part of all of this. They were definitely nervous. And I think at one point we were like, they might be operaed out. It was a lot of moments coming in, but they saw just how excited the students were when they saw that opera was on the schedule. They loved getting to see the final product, but also that's one of the challenges, of course. Like this was all about a creative process and a journey. And the point was that, yes, we had a final show that we were going to get to share with everyone and how that was exciting. But it's hard when you're a teacher to advocate for a big project like this, when you know that time is of the essence. You maybe have testing at the end of the year. You want to fit in all these lessons. And knowing that this project was all about the journey, I think they really gained something from that, rather than it always being about the product. And even now, I mean, back and forth in Emmy Center, like, oh, we have 30 minutes to get through this lesson, or going into the classroom. But we're always like, wait a minute, if we have to do a game twice, an improv game with the students, that's okay. And I think that the teachers really, really bonded with that, and I think would agree that learned something from the actual students doing it.
Yeah, they always say that a great teacher is learning from the student.
Yeah,
learning from the process.
To sit beside, and I think that really resonated with this group of teachers, and we're hoping to bring the project to other teachers. And the question is, how do you do that, right? Improv games themselves are really challenging. How do you yes and a second grader, right? Mm-hmm. And so questions like that, when you're writing out a story, I mean, we told the story about Winn-Dixie, and because of Winn-Dixie, this year we're doing the book Gooseberry Park. Yeah. So it's about a squirrel. And, if a student says to me, well, I think there's an alien in this scene, most teachers, their initial thought is, okay, once again, I have this 30-minute chunk of time to get through the writing process. I'm going to say no to that student. But what if you actually say yes, and you write down that, yes, there's an alien in this scene. And then you come back to, oh, wait, what's our theme of this story, which the students then came up with. And they themselves either realize that the alien doesn't fit, or perhaps it does. And that's a really exciting thing. I mean, this opera did not have to match the material verbatim of what was in the book. It was really their work. And both from a teaching perspective, giving them that ownership is really exciting to children. And I think they saw that.
Yeah, and as you're describing it, I'm thinking like you're talking about like critical thinking skills then by you're teaching a second grader something that we should teach some adults sometimes, like to think through, well, okay, yeah, let's think about your answer. Is it doable or is it not doable? Instead of just saying the flat out yes or no right away. It's as you both discussed, it's that and part, which is so valuable. So Sarah, let me turn to you and let's pull the music education piece into this. We've talked here a little bit about your expertise or your work is in social emotional learning. How does this tie in? I mean, that's kind of a silly question in some ways because they both just kind of answer that in some way.
Yeah.
But talk to us from the music education perspective.
Sure thing. Well, I am an opera appreciator and admirer, but not an opera doer. So I guess where I can help out this project is sort of a research lens. But as Don and I were in our early days of talking about this project, I kept coming back to the thought that opera education is SEL education. It matches up just perfectly. So through opera, we tell stories, we receive stories, we connect with artists and contexts and time periods. We see relatable human experiences laid out before us, whether it's a Mozart opera or Verdi or second graders telling the story of Winn-Dixie. As we experienced and kind of lived the project for 1 year, we kind of came back to the CASEL framework and thinking about these facets of SEL, of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And we kind of have been doing some thinking and reflecting about how all these facets of the project have kind of been shining through this CASEL framework. It was interesting to see children, teachers, everyone involved in the project in kind of this navigating the self and reflecting on the self, just thinking about, like Anissa was saying, a student saying, I'm a great singer, and things like that. Every person involved was really exploring the edges of their comfort zone, whether it was the second grade teachers or the people on this podcast right now, the second graders, everyone involved really was doing the work of self-reflecting and just seeing what we could accomplish together. It's really beautiful as well to see kind of this interpersonal part of the SEL and the empathy building happening. Just kind of the children being empathetic with each other as they were moving through this process. All of the grownups being empathetic with each other as we move through the process. And also really how they are synthesizing, how the children were synthesizing the story of Opal and Winn-Dixie, stepping into those thoughts and experiences and feelings for themselves. Like Anissa was saying, like, well, this feeling at this part of the story, how does that match what the music sounds? And I just think it's really important, empathy building, building up those skills to be just wonderful human beings. So.
Yeah. So let me just throw this out there for anyone who wants to chime in on this part. You know, you talked about a little bit, like, so you did all of this work and there's so much that I'm sure you learned from that first time through as you were doing it, as you're reflecting and you're talking about, you know, what happens next, but like, where does this go from here? Like, what becomes of all of this?
Well, I can jump in on that a little bit and start it and have everyone join in. I mean, the goal is to continue, and we don't know exactly where it's heading. Just like we didn't know exactly when we started where the first year would end, I think we're still living in that possibility, the land of possibility, creativity, openness, curiosity. And what we know is that there is interest in this project. We're really grateful that the teachers at Grace Woods wanted to do it again with us. And so we get to do it again with some context to refine and think about the process. We're currently in the process of designing a handbook that will talk about the project and create resources for the project. And our desire is long-term, in some way, shape, or form, to make this accessible and to make it something that we feel like other people could bring into their communities, either with teaching artists or perhaps without. And we've been trying to think about ways that we can make it as accessible as possible for other people to do the project.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. Were you gonna say something, Sarah?
Oh, I was just going to say, we are also, based on what our reflections were from this past iteration, we are hoping to come through this school year with a systematic study. We're waiting for permissions from IRB right now, but some empirical research looking at the impact of this work.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've already all shared here in the past 20 minutes, impact. Just hearing some of those students' stories, but then I think hearing the stories from all of you is fascinating. So let me just move on from the opera piece, and let me just throw out one other question. I'm curious if you, and I don't know if Dawn would maybe be the best person to answer this, but tell us about the courses that you offer for teaching artists. I mean, I think it's something that maybe music educators out there don't think about, that this is a thing like at a collegiate level. Can you just talk about that briefly?
Sure. I mean, what I would say is that I'm not aware that we had one before this.
Okay.
I'm new to Penn State again, so I'm in my second year, so I don't want to say that with authority, but I'm not aware of one before this, at least in the School of Music. But so we designed it together for the first year, and we're actually redesigning it now for the spring with the help very much of Anissa and Cole as they went through this whole process together. And so we actually have a beautiful first draft that was created of that handbook, and now we're going to be shaping a new syllabus, and we're even looking at other ways with Cole and Anissa serving as TAs for this project as we bring on the next round of students for this year. So I can imagine it evolving. I'll also say that we did do a presentation when Tim Kennedy came to campus for anyone. We had an open presentation to talk about teaching artistry and what it is, and just introduce people to it. And I will say that I heard from many students that it wasn't something they were even aware existed.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, I would love to have a conversation about that at another point, perhaps on another podcast, to talk more about teaching artists. But I want to thank you all for coming on and talking about this today, and this awesome project. Maybe we'll check back in a year or so to see how kind of the year 2 cohort of all of this went. So thank you all for being with us. And I got to just make this, this is something only people watching the video podcast will see. I'm talking to a bunch of Penn State people, and I'm the only person wearing blue. I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay. Anyway. All right. Thank you all for being with us. Appreciate your time. And thank you all for being with us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We will see you next time.